can put that away. What's going on, Philadelphia? Jesus. I'm John Barchard. That is Vince Quinn. Taylor Kredatus here with us, too. I'm pissed off. You should be pissed off. I bet Vince Quinn's a little mad. Pretty sure Taylor, well, he's pretty neutral, honestly. He just wants his takes to be right. So I am... I'm a little perplexed, honestly. There's a lot of villains in here, Vince Quinn, but let's just start with the villain number one. Nick Sirianni, this loss is on you. 1,000 billion, 100%. Congratulations. You now have to start Jalen Hurts against the Giants. It actually makes me more mad about the Dallas loss because you got like a good Minshew out of it and you fumbled your way out of it. Vince Quinn, how are you feeling after a 20, what did it end up? 20-13, 20-10? It probably should have been 20-14. Kenny Gainwell touchdown. We'll talk about that at the end of the pod. I don't know, man. I don't have any answers for you outside of the shit we've been talking about. The chink in the armor is the coaching staff, and here it is.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing you take away from this game, right? Is trying to figure out what who the Eagles are and what this means and Super Bowl hopes and all that kind of stuff. Like the difference between Gardner Minshew and Jalen Hurts is Jalen Hurts can overcome a bad coaching performance. That's the biggest thing. He can overcome bad coaching because he just makes so many dynamic plays again and again and again that it doesn't matter. You know, you can have terrible games. You can have massive turnovers. You can play like shit against the Colts on the road and still win the game because he's just that damn good, and he doesn't make crippling mistakes. Gardner Minshew, crippling mistake. I mean, that as the second the pick six went, you could see the light go out of his eyes. And for Minshew, I mean, all those throws after that were really atrocious. Now, the game was over at that point, but he ended the game. And that's because they kept throwing. They were down. They couldn't have it. I mean, that game plan today was atrocious. Atrocious. It was a complete disaster, offensively and defensively for the first half. And then, for the second half, after a couple of good offensive drives, they still couldn't get it right. I mean, it was bad, man. But, yeah, when Jalen Hurts is out there, you win against Dallas last week. You win this game this week. With Gardner Minshew, you don't do it this week. And now he's got to play against the Giants, and it totally sucks. It's brutal.
And I don't know, because we talked about this on Friday, and I'm like, well, this is one of those opportunities. This is just kind of thinking down the road because you lost an opportunity to rest everybody today. You lost Josh Sweat doing so in a very serious injury. By the way, just before we started recording, looks like he is going to be released from the hospital. We don't exactly know what that injury is going to be. I would imagine it's going to be semi-long term at best if they're carting you off the field. And I'm just glad that he's okay in a could be worse news situation. It looks like, he's going to be okay. And I just start to think of all those different things. And even coming into this, Vince Quinn, if Jalen Hurts goes out there for a few quarters at the end of this thing, if they're like, all right, we just need you to get in there and go win this thing and rest for 2 weeks right now, I probably would have taken that option. I don't know if it was ever on the table, but I would have done this over having to play the Giants with Jalen Hurts, and the Discord was screaming after this game, and they should have been too. BellTheBirdmen.com, you can join us there, but, if this gets prolonged in that Giants game next week, even though it doesn't look like they have much to play for, they have indeed clinched a playoff spot. I don't know, man. I just feel like you could have made a great opportunity where you're not even worried about this game truly doesn't matter. You're just playing Ian Book to see what he's got for 3 quarters. You're helping out the Saints with their playoff run. Unfortunately, now you've got to sit here and stew and talk about how Jonathan Gannon let this team down for the billionth time, even though, yes, there should be criticism there, but you're pointing at the wrong person if you're there today. It's 13 points. BG gets a sack record, I can't imagine you and I sitting here, everyone in the world sitting here and go, all you got to do is fucking run against the Saints. That's all you got to do. And they get too cute once again. It felt very much like the Colts. And here we are all universityed up and yay, all this good stuff. And just it doesn't matter because they can't execute it. It's just, I don't feel like they feel their offense or defense has changed at all. And they just keep, performing the same way or calling the same stuff like nothing's happening here when you've lost Lane Johnson too. It's very perplexing, Vince Quinn.
Yeah, it's a mess, man. Again, on the fundamental level, like there was a lot of stuff here where in the first half it was just like, yeah, they try to run an RPO on 3rd and 1 with Minshew, or a read option with Minshew rather, and he gets tackled for a loss, so they don't convert there. It's not close enough to go for it on 4th. They had stuff where there was a lot of coverage sacks where he was trying to make something happen. He's sitting in the pocket. There's just nothing there. After 3 seconds, he gets crunched. There was just so many plays where it was like, oh, you see the handoffs at the beginning of the second half, and they're getting 9 yards a carry. They only had 2 handoffs in the first half. 2. But
That's crazy.
They only had 17 plays in the first half, which is embarrassing because I feel like the Saints basically had that on their first drive. So
8 minutes in that first drive.
But man, like some of the obvious things you're supposed to do with Minshew, it's more of the short intermediate game. It's handing off the ball, let him manage it that way, take a shot here or there, and let it ride. Like that's not what it was. It was just a fundamental misunderstanding of who this guy is, and it didn't work out. And they had to change it so dramatically at halftime, and then it was too late. And really, I mean, they got. Like some of the moments, I mean, A.J. Brown went for God knows how many yards on that touchdown. So he makes he capitalizes on the Saints fucking up on the back end. And then otherwise, like they weren't running clean drives. You know what I mean? It wasn't there. And because of that, all these different problems, the field position game killed them today. I mean, Brett Kern had a 26-yarder. The Saints had another play where they down the ball at the 4. That's after the Eagles are constantly 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out. And what happens for that? Well, the Saints are getting the ball at least the 35 or the 45 and things like that. And so it's easier for them to get down there and get points. I mean, it's crazy, man. Like this game was so winnable down to the very end there. That going back, like, holy shit, like because the Saints had their mistakes too. I think generally the defense played well, but man, dude, that Wildcat flea flicker play was one of the most atrocious calls you could have possibly had in that moment. Terrible. Alvin Kamara in the shotgun, pitching it back to Taysom Hill. They had one person out on the route. They lost 7 yards on the play. It knocked him out of field goal range, and they had to punt 13-10 with like 6 minutes left. That's the game right there.
Yes, exactly, Vince.
It was still, that's as bad as they were, it was still there. So again, like, yeah, I'm not killing Gannon for today. He's always frustrating. Dalton was 12 for 12. That should drive you nuts. So I hear the frustrations overall. But again, they get so many sacks. They keep teams off schedule. It's only 13 points that they allowed. I can't kill him for it. He made the adjustments, and they worked once they did it. So it's Steichen, it's Sirianni, like you said. And the fact that they still don't coach great games or come out with great game plans a lot of times, like first quarter scoring. Second quarter is always usually when they run up all the points. First quarter and just like how are we planning to attack this team and getting like first drive touchdowns and all, that's what you want to see. And they just totally fucking botched it today.
Yeah, and where I'll bite into the Jonathan Gannon apple is this. If you are not aggressive against a team like that where – and by the way, now I was crying, I'm laughing now. The Eagles got beat by a 2 QB system today. And that's ridiculous. And when you know that as Jonathan Gannon, go allow your playmakers to go try and make some interceptions, to allow some turnovers to happen, to force them to throw stupid balls, which Andy Dalton, I'm sorry, Vince, I know he's on your phone, but like, dude, exactly that. You should bitch about the zone thing because if Dak's going to cut it up and Andy Dalton can cut it up and make it consistent and make all these chunks, go down for a half, yes, that presents an opportunity that didn't need to be there. If you are really aggressive coming out in that game and say, hey, we don't need to just like do our thing. We need to carry this team today. Now, granted, I didn't think Gardner Minshew was going to lay a fucking egg, which he did. I mean, that was just so fucking bad. But you got to turn it up at some point. You know, you finally see some of those stunts and Hassan Reddick winding up and going like, oh, yeah, I get to go have fun out there instead of going like, stay in your position, stay in cover. And that is my ultimate problem will always be with Jonathan Gannon is he's so strict to his rules. And I think we talked about that last week. It showed up again against Andy Dalton. Like, who cares? Stop respecting them so goddamn much. Now, moving on to that, yes, like, you should be pointing the finger now at, and I've been yelling at Shane Steichen for a long time, and this is where it comes up. And I think we both said it before we started warming up here. Man, I mean, like, if this doesn't make you rethink everything you thought, Chris Sims, Micah Parsons, all those other dumbasses that were thinking like this is going to be easy. Even with Jalen Hurts being there, a one and done. Now that apple of truth is just going to keep going on for the next 2 weeks. Now you do believe that the Eagles can get bounced simply by how bad this coaching staff has shown its ass in the last couple of weeks. And to me, I guess that's why I'm not like looking for the nearest mountain or Ben Franklin Bridge or whatever. Like, we've been noticing this stuff for quite some time. And if Jalen Hurts is not in the playoffs, considered me in the extremely worried pile. But until that happens, until we know for sure that Jalen is missing, everything is going to come right back to where it should be. This team is powered by the offense. It's how he goes. The entire squad, from running the football to throwing it to how the defensive performance looks in the end, it's all Jalen Hurts. So I don't know what you want me to do. How do you want me to fix this situation? How do you want Jonathan Gannon or Shane Steichen or Nick Sirianni to change what they're doing? Because that's not going to happen, guys. Vince Quinn, you got any fun ideas on how to make this not a one-and-done team or make everyone feel a little bit better? Because it's not going to happen in the next couple of weeks. You need Jalen Hurts here, and that's it.
Well, yeah, I think, honestly, I think everybody's going to feel a lot better in a week. Feel like shit now, ask questions now, be angry now because Jalen has to play next week. But, yeah, like you mentioned this earlier, John, I do think it's really important to say, the Giants have nothing to play for next week. They have nothing, literally zero to play for. They're the 6th seed. That's it. That's all they got. So, unless they're just playing to play, it's not the same stakes. And same thing, too, talking about the Saints today. The Saints, it is their playoff hopes on the line. They are playing for something. This did matter for them. So as much as it hurts as a fan, you're going, well, shit, the pick and where that goes, like that is a big factor. That makes this loss sting. It's a massive lost value from all of this. But, dude, like
officially out now because Tampa Bay won. But thank you very much, Taylor
okay,
Kredatus. But they still were playing for something. Yeah,
I didn't see the final of that. So yeah. So with that being the case, like they were playing for something. They played well, and it is what it is. So like, yeah, for now it's just go win that game against the Giants. Let's get Jalen back. We'll evaluate. And at that point, it just becomes how good does Jalen look? What is he going to look like 2 weeks from then, assuming he wins? And if they lose next week, then it is absolute chaos, and I would consider this very likely a one-and-done team. But
I wouldn't at all. I wouldn't at all. Hold on that point alone. That's ridiculous.
No, because you could lose the 1 seed.
And what happens when you lose the 1 seed? We have said for weeks that this NFC is nothing but a couple of dicks. So you got to add a game on, and maybe you have to go on the road for one of these. Yes! I'm still not fucking scared. You can't be done. Everybody can be one and done. That's why it's the goddamn playoffs. If you mean that they're not the 1 seed anymore, and they might have to go on the road to Minnesota, or they might have to go down to what? San Francisco, Dallas? Where do you want them to? I still have confidence that they can go on a run. It's a lot harder. Are they going to win the Super Bowl?
Harder.
I don't know, but I'm still marking them at the NFC Championship game, and let's go find out.
No.
This is ridiculous.
They have no reason to be penciled in the NFC Championship game if they lose next week. None. They've lost 3 straight weeks. They lose the 1 seed. I don't care that it's Gardner Minshew for 2 of those 3.
Well, they're not going to lose next week.
They better not. I didn't think they were going to lose this week. So here they are, and it's coaching, right? So we'll see. We'll see what happens next week. I don't know. We don't even know if the Giants are going to play their guys. But if the Giants play their guys and they lose next week at home with the 1 seed on the line, this team is pretty fucked. I mean, you're immediately becoming the
fucked from what? Fucked from what?
From winning a Super Bowl.
Oh, maybe, but you're
going from the 1 seed to the 5. You're on the road for all those games. You're playing an extra playoff game. Your odds are
this year it doesn't.
Lower.
I mean,
There's
this
so
year
much lower as a 5 seed than a 1.
Yes,
so
but
lower. This
year of any year, that's like the difference between any of these teams is not large. Even if you think the Eagles are total frauds, which I have seen and heard many times after hours after this football game, and that's probably just emotions and shit.
Yeah,
but if you still think that way, then the whole NFC is frauds. All of it is. The whole shebang. Why should I be suddenly worried that they might lose a football game? Because that's what happens in football, especially when you're missing Lane Johnson and especially when Gardner Minshew lays an egg and you don't have these things in a really tough game to get up for after New Year's, after you've been clearly bottling with Harden on New Year's Eve or whatever the fuck happened. I mean, it's just hard to stay that tempo for that long, and none of the teams in the NFL have been able to do that. outside of the Chiefs, if you want to argue that, fine. But, like, this is just part of the NFL season.
Look, part of it, like, losing games happens, okay? This is going to be, right now they're at their third loss. That's phenomenal.
3 losses in a fucking season, and you're sitting here telling me the season's over. Fuck you guys. That's what I'm saying. Like, what are you talking about when you guys sat there and said this was not possible? You said this was not possible, and now the season's over. Relax. I'm officially telling everyone to relax. Be mad, but calm the fuck down.
If they lose to the Giants, it's Armageddon.
Of course it is, but that's not going to happen.
It better not. But that's everything now, and there's so much energy going into this game now because there has to be, and it sucks because you are playing all your guys, and like for the Eagles' standpoint of this, it is those injuries, and they do matter, sure, but like also here's the tough thing too. Every team's got injuries, so you can talk about key guys getting hurt. I mean, like, what team doesn't have key guys that are hurt?
What key guy is missing their starting quarterback and is a playoff team, or are considering themselves a 1 seed? Oh, nobody.
Well, for Jalen specifically, yeah. But it's just you talk about all the other guys. Like, Chauncey's out. Okay, that's a big deal. Yes, it is. Like, Lane Johnson's out. Okay, plenty of teams are missing linemen. Like, that happens. Now it's going to be
Josh Sweat missed the entire game.
So 3 starters. Yeah, like those things do. I'm not saying they don't matter. I'm just saying everybody's dealing with it, and I feel like it's just nobody ever gives a shit about the other team and the guys that they're missing. So it's never taken into account. But that does matter. So anyway, you just don't want more of those injuries as you're down the stretch here. So now that you are exposing your guys to those kinds of things next week, it totally sucks. It really sucks for them to be here. It's the coaching staff's fault. They need to have a hell of a game plan next week, and they need to sort this shit out. Because if they lose 3 straight going into the playoffs and drop from a 1 seed to a 5 seed, this is a catastrophe. I don't care what the record is. It's a catastrophe at that point.
They kicked the shit out of the Giants. They kicked the shit out of Chicago, got injured. Then the next 2 games, they almost beat Dallas. Then they have a clunker. I mean, it's not like there isn't a pattern of like, oh my God, they're going downhill. They lost their starting fucking quarterback for 2 games. They almost won one, and they lost one that they should have. And to your point, injuries be damned. That's not what lost them the game. Their coaches lost them the game. They should have won this one. Hands down. If they come out like this and this is like the start of the playoffs and that's a playoff game that you just played, I've got serious doubts about everything we just watched this season. But that's not what happened today, and people are acting as if that's what did. It was a playoff game against Dallas. We should have known that this is a trap game. That's my fault. This was the true trap game on the schedule here because it's just like, you're the Saints. What are you? You're done. And they were trying to give the game away. They didn't have any offensive scoring in the second half. Vince Quinn, I want to choke slam something. It's one of those games. And I'm just thinking about more last week and all that. You know, I don't think we'll hear any Miles Sanders Waterboy sounds coming out of the sound effects this week.
Well, yeah, no, probably not. It's going to be more of the what is it? What's his name? Fucking Rob Schneider. It's more the Rob Schneider character with "You can do it." Cut his fucking head off. Is what people
we suck again.
The coaching staff. Yeah, it's going to be those things. Is what you're hearing more than the. So, like, dude, it's a really bad look right now, and figuring out what they're going to do at this point. I mean, it's just like because if you're going to play Jalen, you got to run him.
Oh, yeah. And what's
he's going to get carries. Like, he's going to get carries next week. That's just how he plays. You can't – I just can't imagine you can't put him in the game if he can't run the ball. You know what I mean?
Well, I don't think that they're – I don't know how you want to view how serious this injury can or can't be. But, even if he's, like, at 90% or whatever it is, I think that's fine. This is one of those times where you got to – hope and pray. Like, yeah, I'm going to be okay, and I'm sure Lane Johnson's going to be saying the same thing round 1 too. It's just.
Yeah, but going back to this again, like this is why it could be like if they lose next week, it's a total abject disaster because you don't get an extra week for Jalen Hurts to heal. So now you've played a game. He's had to play. He is injured to some degree, and now he's got to go on the road and play a playoff game rather than sit home for a week and then play a game at home the following week. Like that's a big deal. It's just it really sucks to be staring at this in the face.
I really don't think the regular season trends at all to the playoffs. the disappointment, I'm not saying, like, you're probably going to have to change your expectations. Yeah. I mean, you'd be insane not to if they lose to the Giants when we're saying the Giants have nothing to play for. Yeah. I mean, there's something wrong, clearly. But once that stops and the playoffs start, still doesn't matter, man. I mean, we have the only thing that you could possibly maybe compare that to is like the 2009 Eagles when they had to go and play Dallas. They got their ass kicked. You had to go see them the next week, and then they split quarterbacks between McNabb and Vic, and that was the end of that. And I don't feel that at all, you know. But what I do feel is this is nowhere close to 2017. Hello again, you know, like this isn't stomping and all over the yard, and there isn't. I mean, sure, there's an injured quarterback. They are playing really shitty at the end of a year. We're all questioning if the backup quarterback could do anything in the playoffs. It sounds oddly familiar, but you know, it's just not the same. And it goes back to everything we've been saying. The coaching staff, I think, has held this team back a lot in terms of, you know, just being able to do some really simple stuff. I honestly, when you side peek down at Doug at like maybe a possibly 9-8 Jaguars team, you're going, well, shit. I mean, that's whatever he's doing seems like it still kind of works in terms of like bringing all these things together. That's what I've been saying all year. There's just this one thing that's missing from it being a total dominant team, and I honestly think it's just experience. And you can't rush it. You can't force it. And the only thing you can do to change that is fire coaches in the offseason, which is probably going to happen no matter what. You know, like something's going to happen, or someone's going to get promoted or take a job or whatever we've been saying here. But this is ultimately what is going to hold them back from winning a Super Bowl. I don't disagree with that at all.
Yeah, I mean, if we're ever going to look at something from that we've seen all year, that's been the number one recurring thing all year is we just go like, what is up with the coaching staff? Because, look, if they were calling good plays and the players don't execute it, that's one thing. But when you're calling bad plays, it's just – and they did that so much today offensively, man. It was just brutal. Absolutely brutal to go through all that. And, like, you can complain about some of the stuff. Yeah, the Dickerson call was ludicrous. Completely
unbelievably ludicrous.
And you can do the math on that and how it impacts the game and the Eagles win the game if that isn't called back. I mean, maybe. There's a very real possibility of that. So, whatever. But, like – again, you hate to limit it to a single play like that. You've got so much game left to respond to that. And they just played terribly. They were coached terribly, and they couldn't make up for it. And it's tough, too, because, like, Josiah Scott got a pick. So you got to turn over there. You got, 7 sacks today? 8 sacks today? Like, you're getting dynamic playmaking on the defensive side of the ball, and that's going to give you plenty of opportunities to win games. But when you're going 3 and out all the time, or you're going backwards all the time, they had a lot of penalties and stuff. Offensively, it was just so sloppy today. So sloppy. And Minshew was awful. Let me ask you this, though, because like we've kind of touched on Minshew a little bit. Some of the stuff I was seeing, especially in the Discord, Twitter, was just like, Minshew should never back up for this team again, and like this guy totally fucking sucks. And it was just like, I'm not going that far on Minshew. Are you like, does this change how you feel about Minshew at all?
I mean, how I feel, no. And I guess what I said at the time was like, I really respect Gardner Minshew a lot. Don't think he's anywhere close to providing what Jalen Hurts could have. I do think I probably made him a little better in my head. Like, I've been into, you know, being in the fucking trailer and doing all that stuff. But there is something weird going on with, because the sneak on 4th down is a good example of this. What bothered me the most, I think, from Eagles Twitter is like, why are you running a sneak on 4th and 1 with Gardner Minshew? He can't do that. That's why Jalen Hurts has 600 pounds of legs and all that, which is certainly true and why it's helped them. But you can run the sneak with Gardner Minshew. They did it last week for a touchdown. Gardner Minshew fucked up. I don't know what happened, but like Kelsey got called for something in this game. I can't remember who else got tagged. They were mentioning that during the broadcast, where I think even Moose said, we brought that up to Nick Sirianni of why do you think there's so many miscommunications on the offensive line and penalties? And he goes, I got a little too cute with this or something like that. And I just go, well, Gardner wasn't ready for it. It seemed like, didn't that look like it to you? He just kind of like was puzzled, hesitated. He's like, I'm going to get leverage here, or thought he was going to sneak to the side instead of just dipping his head down and pushing forward and just riding the butt of Jason Kelsey. It was just a bad mistake from Gardner Minshew. I don't think they stuffed anything.
Yeah, I don't know if they just lost out on the leverage and the Saints got lower or what.
Could have been that too. Yeah,
he was pretty damn high up, and I will credit the broadcast because normally I just ignore those things. But there was a moment where the Saints player who did get his hands on the shoulder pads of Minshew and like leveraged him from the top of the pile. That was really interesting. And if I'm a defensive coordinator that's worth a damn, I'm taking notes of that, and I'm telling my guys to think about it if that's how it shakes out, is try to get up top and just fight from the top and keep him there and don't let him get that momentum the same way he's getting pushed on the back. You push him from the front and see if you can hold. So, like, that was an interesting thing to do. But, yeah, the offensive line, man, a lot of penalties. Like, it's always like a legal man downfield they've gotten called for so many times this year. That's what Kelsey got hit with. Part of it is they just kick ass, and they're just good at driving people down the field. So they just keep driving them down the field. It's a weird trade-off to have, but and then sometimes they just got beat today. Like that's going to happen once in a while. We're lucky that we usually never see that, but it did happen a good deal today, and Driscoll's in part to blame. So part of it's adjusting, part of it is they just made some mistakes, part of it is the refs fucked up royally, and you add it all up and it's a little sloppy. But going to Minshew too, the thing for me, like, he is a backup quarterback. He's a fringe starter at best. And he's always been one of those guys that, like, yeah, I mean, when it's the right environment, things can go well, but he does make the occasional mistake. He's not a dynamic talent, and that's what showed today. So again, he can't overcome the mistakes of a bad coaching staff or a bad coaching game, and that's why you lose. But I'm not like throwing Minshew out. You know what I mean? It's like, oh my God, you can't bring him back because of this. He's a backup quarterback. Like, who's the other backup you want? You know what I mean? Like, present me a list.
Desmond Ridder. I'm dead serious. If you would have drafted Desmond Ridder instead of Nakobe Dean, much more useful this season. That's all.
Oh, man. Oh, no.
Because Desmond steps in right now. He basically is Gardner Minshew, and he still has like a ways to grow, and he'll never touch Jalen Hurts. That's my argument for it during the draft anyway. That's what I'm saying. Like, if you're in week 17 or whatever it is now, 18. What are we in? 17. 17?
Well, it's going to be, we just finished. This was week 17, so.
Yeah. Nakobe Dean has been playing some nice snaps when the Eagles have been blowing people out. Otherwise, it's always going to be a serious problem. Like, and it's not because of Jalen Hurts' running ability or any of that crap. It's just you have to find somebody that can run the offense. I know why everybody thinks I'm nuts when I bring up the 2 QB system, but that's exactly why. You can't just have a Gardner Minshew anymore and whoop, 13. Like, what would you do right now? You're 13-3 and you're competing for a 1 seed. You need a little more QB talent than Gardner Minshew, right? So I don't think they can bring him back, honestly. I think he's good for what they need during the regular season, but he is not a person that's going to win you a playoff game where it's going to be hard, or he's going to have a Nick Foles moment, which, hey, I'm never going to say never anymore, but it's going to be really hard to win a Super Bowl with Gardner Minshew, especially if you lose to the Giants. Yes, then you can just close that book altogether. So I don't know. I think I'm a little more leaning towards the Discord and everybody that can't bring Minshew back next year.
Yeah, I wouldn't discount him for it yet. I mean, because, again, he went on the road and he put up 34 points. So it's like great performance, awful performance, and he's a backup quarterback. So, look, if you draft a kid and you develop, I'm fine with that. But I'm not, like, pushing Minshew out the door because it's hard to find good backup quarterbacks. Some teams have Mike Glennon as a backup. You know what I mean? Like,
well, that's because they're tanking most of the time. But yes, yeah.
I mean, some of them are and some of them aren't. I mean, it's just like there's a lot of shitty backup quarterbacks out there. Like Cooper Rush is the backup in Dallas. I'd take Minshew over Rush in a heartbeat.
Purdy, Peterman, as TK is just throwing out all the P backups. So there you go.
There we go. Peterman, get out of here with Peterman. Brock Purdy, you can convince me, but Peterman, absolutely not.
Well, and let me touch on that real quick because we were getting into it in the Discord. Like, okay, there isn't a lot of talk about the 49ers and Brock Purdy and all that other stuff. And I'm going, well, yes, of course. They're winning with their third quarterback, right? I could almost hear people calling me out when they're saying, like, oh, Brock Purdy. Let's see it in the playoffs. Do you honestly think the San Francisco 49ers today are still better than a 85% Jalen Hurts, a 65% Lane Johnson-led team? I don't think so. I think Kyle Shanahan's playoff record shows up brilliantly. I think he plays way too conservative, and the emotions of Nick Sirianni actually help against that matchup. So that's where I'm still not like, what do you want me to do? You know, what do you want me to do? Complain that we don't have Brock Purdy instead of Minshew? Sure. We didn't take the last person in the draft.
The Mr. Irrelevant this year that nobody expected to do any of this. Yes, we should have had the foresight to draft Mr. Irrelevant.
Yeah, well, Taylor did, for the record. He's been saying it since then, so we got to give him credit for it.
He's also on the Bailey Zappi train, and he nailed that. So, yeah, points to Taylor there.
Would Taylor also be correct in where your madness actually lies is that your 15-2 prediction is now gone? Because you were banking on all this, and now you're extremely upset, and you're trying to get yourself revved up. I think it might be secretly that too.
I mean, I'm a little bitter. I'm a little bitter from that. I am. But it's look.
No, it's not that.
Three
it's
losses.
Just,
you know what I mean? It's like it's just. I'm just pissed on the way it went down because again, all this week 18 stuff, not having the 1 seed locked up, potentially being on the road is just like scary. It's just the odds of winning the Super Bowl as a 1 seed are just way better. So,
all right, let me see if I can wrap this around my head here, because let's go into the doomsday scenario for whatever reason.
Sure.
If you ever are thinking that it's going to be a doomsday type of day or a week, I highly suggest going to liquiddeath.com/bell to locate where you can get 16.9 ounce beautiful cans of water from the Alps to be stored either in your basement, in your fridge, or when you ever just might need a liquid death, which would be right now for me. I'm taking a long walk to 7-Eleven after this one with the daughter. We gotta really get some takes together. But in a doomsday scenario, and you don't need that much water, where are the Eagles if they are missing out on the 1 seed? What is their first playoff game? Does that mean that they are... Do the Giants come on into town? Do they play the Cowboys at home? That one makes sense, I guess.
No, Dallas would get the bye in that case, or potentially, I guess,
or the Vikings,
or maybe the Vikings do. Yeah, so one of those two would get that, and then you would.
I guess you would be going to the Dallas Cowboys, wouldn't you? In that scenario we just said.
Well, no,
if they end up being the 1 seed,
be the 1, and they would be a division winner. So you'd probably go to the NFC South. So you'd be playing like the Bucks. You'd play the Bucks at this.
Oh, the
point.
The Bucks would be coming to the link.
No,
round one,
you'd be
right?
on the road because you're a wild card.
Oh, you're not you lost the division too in
Yeah.
that case, right? Oh, wait. So yeah, Dallas ultimately now has to lose to win the division now too. So that's also like way up in the air as well. So that makes you feel nice and comfortable there. But all right, so they would either travel to, if Dallas is the 1 seed, they're heading, or the Bucks are coming to them round 1. And then
they're going to the Bucks because you're a wild.
They're going to the
team.
Bucks. I keep saying that. That's right.
Yeah.
So that'll be hilarious and dreadful, and everybody will think of last year. But Jalen Hurts will redeem himself because he's not the same guy from last year, and that's not the Bucks team, and they win. I say they win round 1. So now it's just about playing the. You still wouldn't see the 1 seed after that, right? You're still seeing like whoever the 2 or 3 or whatever.
You're gonna play, depending on the rankings, like the 1 seed's gonna play the lowest ranked seed that's left. You know what I mean? So with the way all that stuff shakes out, I mean, who knows? It's just how all the matchups play out of who you're gonna get next. But the road, it's just, again, it's 1, you're playing an extra playoff game. 2, you're playing all of your playoff games on the road. And 3, that extra game is lining you up for more injury potential. So like it's the last thing you want, and it's just got to be the shittiest feeling in the world to go like, all right, this is a lock. We're the best team in the conference. There's no doubt about it. Maybe depending on who you talk to, we're the best team in the league. And now, oh my God, we're suddenly, it's such a fallen status, man. It's just it's not easy. That's a tough thing to stomach overnight.
Yeah, I just don't believe that they are. Because of everything that we've seen this season, and we're really going to compartmentalize this game, or next, if they lose against the Giants, like then they are in the same pool that everyone else is. So maybe they're not as like elite, but they're still king of the frauds, if you want to call it that. I'm happy to. I'm happy to ride the king of the frauds train because y'all are the same anyway. Every single NFC team is the same. They have some weird deficiency in them, and they all think they're better than one another, and it's just not true. Like, that's what we learned today. And I don't even know if that's true yet with the Eagles without Jalen Hurts, because that has not been true yet.
Yeah, and I do think that's the biggest part of all of this. They're not losing these games with Jalen Hurts. If they were losing these games with Jalen Hurts, it's a way bigger concern. They have not done that. And again, my whole opening point was Jalen can overcome bad coaching. So
yes, he can.
They should win next week. I mean, just everything seems to tell me. I would imagine the Giants aren't, even if they play everybody, I don't know if the Giants are going to be fully locked in for that game. I mean, what are the odds? You know, like
unless they, well, I was going to get Joe Judge on the phone and see how he felt, because, you know, maybe I don't know if his old former franchise laying down so the Eagles can win the 1 seed is you know, strategic for them, or I don't know who they want to go and choose, but yeah, man. I mean, I would. My crosshairs are with Nick Sirianni this week. If you want to go off on him for, you know, the next 4 days, have at it. He deserves every single ounce of it. So does Shane. I don't. I'm still. You know, you look at Gardner Minshew, and he deserves a lot of blame. He does. Like, but I mean, like, I'm not gonna say that he's the sole reason to why we're having this conversation in the first place. You know, you should have just had Miles and Kenny and all those guys. Like, if Dickerson is pancaking dudes and getting holding calls, you should probably keep running the football. These are really smart guys. They understand the concepts probably more than any other new coaches come in here and be like, wow, I'm really impressed with what they design, how they teach it, how they function it. But what is happening on game day? Do you have any theories on that, other than they just suck at the job?
Yeah, I think they're just, you know, I mean, they analyze it and the analysis is wrong. That's really it. It's just we look at this and we go, hey, this is the best way to go and beat this team. Here's the kinds of plays we want to call. It does not work even a little bit. And then they're scrambling. They're like, oh, you know, all that stuff we were planning to do? Well, that didn't work. All right, what's next? And look, the credit is a lot of times when they're trying to find out what's next, they do adapt properly. Like, they usually make good tweaks, but even when they made them this week, it wasn't enough, and they didn't maintain it long enough. So it really sucks. And by the way, with the garden analogy, I think what you're looking for is like a tree with many rings in it. You know, you want an old oak that was around in the 1800s, and it's just it's been a staple of the community, and it could come support this lovely garden that Nick is building. Like, we need to transplant that in here. So maybe that's Frank Reich next year. Who the fuck knows? But
please,
for now.
But why not? Honestly, I mean, again, unless it's going to mess up his contract or what the Colts are paying him to sit at the couch. I mean, he probably already is. I would be texting Frank Reich every day. So, you know, some elder vines. There you go. Yay, Taylor getting into the mix. I like it. Some elder vines in there. Maybe, I don't know, who's an old head DC guy? I mean, Vic Fangio's already there. So
that's all you need.
Consultants, more consultants. That's yeah. It always sounds great when you're hiring a bunch of consultants to fix a problem that's right in front of you. So, listen, if you, I don't know what you want this week, honestly, other than just to go win and take a breather, because I think that's what we need. And it's so important that the Eagles win against the Giants game, and until they do, my heart rate is pretty much going to stay the same. So try and make me a little more worried, I guess. Vince Quinn, Discord, Taylor Kredatus. I just can't get there. I really can't. So, Vince Quinn, any final thoughts before we say goodbye?
No, I mean, if you want to keep it calm until the Giants game, that's fine. I'm not going to begrudge you for that. And yeah, I mean, it's just going to be a slight lingering sense of dread.
Whether or not this wasn't the greatest way to start out your new year, we're glad that you're here with us. And we're not going anywhere. We got plenty to talk about, plenty to get into, and we'll see you for a Giants victory this week at bellandthebirdmen.com. Bye, guys.